Oh, so we are on air. Hello, everyone. My name is Vladimir Krichevsky. Glad to welcome you all. How are you? Hi, Guru. Okay, so if you see me or hear me, please type something in the chat, would you? Like, you look nice, Vladimir. Hi, Vladimir. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm glad to welcome you all to our next webinar. I want to thank NAFTA College for providing this venue for our online events. It's been almost a year since we started this series of online webinars. I think I had the honor of conducting the first one, and it was, well, nearly a year ago. So I don't want to call it COVID-driven, but seems like it was a powerful trigger for all of us to switch to online knowledge sharing. So it's a real winter here in Moscow. I think it's been a week since it's been around -20 Celsius here, and Moscow is covered in snow. Well, wait, let me show you. Yes. This is how Moscow looks nowadays. Quite snowy and freezing again. All right, so now let me introduce our speaker for today's webinar. He's my colleague. He's a reservoir engineer with Sofoil. His name is Marat, Dr. Marat, and he will present us with the slides on prime analysis as the consolidating analytical tool for production data analysis. Dr. Marat, how are you?
Hello, Vladimir. Hello, everybody. I'm fine, thank you.
How's the weather in Kazan?
Oh, today is very frozen morning in Kazan. I think almost -25 maybe degree.
Whoa, it's even cold in Kazan. Okay,
yes.
Okay. Yeah, right. So yeah, this is how Russia is in the evening. So guys, I'm gonna just remind you how it works. So we are on YouTube channel now. We are translating our webinar via YouTube. So you have this chat on the right. So during the webinar, if you have any questions, you might just type your questions in the chat. And once our speaker finishes his speech, we will go into Q&A session. I will address your questions to our speaker, and I hope this is going to be interesting for us all. So, Dr. Matt, whenever you're ready, the mic is yours, the screen is yours. Have a good webinar.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. Let me share my screen. Okay. Please tell me, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, at least I can. I think you can. You may proceed.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let me start. Let me switch off my vision, my camera. Okay, let's start. Hello, everybody. My name is Marat Garnyshev. I'm a reservoir engineer in Sofoil company. I'm happy greeting you here in NAFTA College webinar platform. And I want to say thanks them for this opportunity. So today I want to tell you about one of the analytical tools called prime analysis. Okay, let's start. First of all, the goal of prime analysis is primary analysis of production history. It means we use historical data from wells for creating different metrics, which can help us make decisions. So the main objectives are assessment of current oil depletion and depletion rates. And for that, usually decline curves are used. Assessment of pressure maintenance effectiveness. And assessment of well productivity. Assessment of vertical sweep. It can be thief production injection, incomplete involvement of reserves, or producing from washed layers. And creating a list of candidates for surveys and workovers. The main input parameters for prime analysis are shown on this slide. There are production and pressure history, results of all conducted surveys, reservoir and fluid properties, reserves, and project documentation. All of them we can use from our analysis and make decisions. Workflow is very simple. The prime analysis starts in high level with field analysis. And here we create metrics for whole field and briefly learn the current status of development. After that, a prospective block is selected. And further analysis performs within this block. At the beginning, block analysis, and then differential analysis for each well. And at the end, the workflow, the table of results with recommendations is created. That's it. This very simple workflow. Only one way. Let's review the stage of prime analysis more detailed. And we start with high level or field analysis. As I mentioned in previous slide, high level analysis is applied to the whole field. It includes decline curve analysis. When we estimate the drained reserves, the decline rate of oil production, or forecast based on a recovery factor. We also can differentiate the development stages of this field. Here you can see different colored blocks on this plot, and this is the stage of our development. We differentiate them and use this splitting in our analysis. It's very useful when we also paint with the same colors our plots, and it shows us the different time intervals of development. And furthermore, here the Watercut analysis is performed. For that, different plots are used. For example, Watercut versus production rate, or Watercut diagram. All of them give us information about water flooding. A few words about Watercut diagram. This is our unique diagnostic plot. It is not used widely in industry nowadays. Briefly, it is a cross plot of cumulative Watercut by current Watercut. Here, in addition to measured data, put it with dots, you can see also 4 curves on the plot. They are micromodel curves of water flooding. These simplest 3D models created and calculated by simulators, for example, Eclipse or T-Navigator, or etc. And using the average properties of reservoir, fluids, and acceptable for this field. Schematically, they look like this. The highest line is aerial flooding model. When the producer has water flooding from all sides and homogeneously. The next one, second line, is linear flooding model. In this model, water flooding front moves from one side. Here you can see a line of injectors, and our producer water flooding by this line. It's linear flooding model. The third line, it's a dipole flooding model. This is system of two wells, producer and injector. And the line below, this is multi-row flooding model. It simulates water flooding of row of producers. In our case, it's 3 rows of producers from the 2 rows of injectors, like on this schematic. And comparing this measured data with these models, we can analyze how the water flooding occurred in this field. This is historical behavior of water flooding, and it's very interesting to see how the water flooding evaluate and which these models can describe this evaluation. Now I show you how to split a field into blocks. In majority cases, field has its own splitting, but sometimes we need to split it to get blocks with optimum number of wells for prime analysis. For splitting, we can get borders using next criteria. External borders, for example, aquifers. It can be one of the borders of our blocks. The next one is injection rows. We can use injector lines like a border. So larger interval spaces. If you can see, some areas have very big gaps, and there are no any wells. And we also can use these areas for bordering. The next type of borders is geological borders, like faults, channels, or something else, etc., etc. And as a result, we get blocks with optimal number of wells, approximately 50, 80 wells. And this number of wells would be used for prime analysis. When we have blocks, we can select the prospective one. Here you can see a scheme of 9 blocks, and for this we should prioritize all these blocks according some criteria. For example, the most residual reserves and lowest formation pressure are in second block, or sorry, in the first block, and it colored green here. And the worst one is block 3. It has a red color. The same paint gradient also for other criteria. For example, reservoir properties. Here we choose high heterogeneity, and in this situation, the best block for us is second block, and the worst one, third block. High water cut and high voidage replacement ratio, DRR. It has his own prioritizing and well technical conditions. It is important for further surveys and workovers ability, and we need to choose the block with more wells which can be which can have workovers, where we have ability to do workovers. At least we have the final peak, and it is the top priority block, and it goes to differential analysis. It's the other stage of our workflow. So for differential analysis, we drop from full field level into block level. It's our chosen top block. Here we create the same metrics as for field analysis, but the difference is that all data are taken within the chosen block. In other words, all reservoir and fluid properties we take for this block conditions. These metrics is decline curves and water cut versus production rate, water cut diagram, etc., etc. All these metrics we also created for full field level. Another application for this plot for a water cut diagram, it's our, as I mentioned, unique metric, is diagnose tip water production and non-uniform sweep. If we put here chosen blocks producers, we can see two zones for analysis. The zone above the line of aerial flooding model can show us the wells with the suspect of water production. Here we see that the current instantaneous water cut is more higher than cumulative water cut. It may be when wells begin producing water from untargeted zones, or we also called it bad water. The second area is below, and below the depot and multi-row flooding models lines, and it can show us the wells with the suspect of non-uniform sweep when the wells begin producing oil from new unwashed layer. And the third zone is wells which between aerial flooding line and multi-row and dipole lines. This wells works on schedule. or they also had this both of these anomalies, and they have addition each other, and these wells become here, this zone. Okay, if we drop deeper into the wells level, we can analyze each well individually and wells of chosen blocks together. First of all, the Voronoi cells for producers or wells where produced oil in the past in block are generated. As you can see here, Voronoi cells for each producer. It is important to differentiate the drainage areas for these wells. Based on these cells, we can get some parameters of wells, like reserves, initial or residuals, depletion, watercut, productivity, production or injection, rates and cumulative values, formation pressure. All of them go to making of maps. So maps of chosen block look like this. There are bubbles on these maps, and these bubbles are the well parameters, which I told you in previous slide. For example, depletion map, where colors show us the wells with low and high depletion, even more than 100%. It means that well produced more oil than reserve it had. And here we can see the zones where this type of wells can locate. For example, Watercut map shows us zones where wells with suspect of thick water production and non-uniform sweep are located. They are also shown with different colors. Wells with suspect of thick water production colored blue, and orange bubbles, it's wells with suspect of non-uniform sweep. And as you can see, this type of wells located in the left side of our block. It's a very good tool for analyzing. And in general, bubble maps created based on wells parameters show location of wells clusters, as I mentioned, and it's useful for analysis. As the same way, the other maps are created, for example, cumulative production map, average oil rates map, and etc. etc. In differential analysis, each well from chosen block has its own passport, and this passport contains some parameters and plots. For example, it contains open hole logs, well schematics, and for each its life, because in well's life, the well has different schematics. results of all conducted surveys like production logs, well tests, and other many surveys. And production history with a table of interventions, and prime metrics. The prime metrics are used for decline curve, Watercut, and productivity analysis. For Watercut analysis, we use standard industry tools like Watercut versus production rate, chain plot, and except these tools, we also, in addition, use Watercut diagram. As I mentioned, don't use industry widely. For example, chain plot is good tool in synthetic or ideal cases, but in real life, it has big fluctuations, and it's difficult to analyze something seen on this plot. Another tool, Watercut versus production rate plot, it's useful and helps indicate some anomalies like channeling at short time interval, not long well's life. And our Watercut diagram, it's created for individual well, shows well's life. And here, even the different time intervals painted different colors. The same colors are shown in production history. It's red, orange, green, blue sky, and blue. And these dots as similar as these time intervals. And it's very useful to analyze this wells Watercut according to these factual measured data. And we can also indicate suspect of thief water production and non-uniform sweep in the past, and analyze the current Watercut also according to the last hour interval. And for this case, for example, the last dots, it's blue dots, it's in the high place. It's mean suspect of thief water production. Sorry. For productivity analysis, we use productivity trend plot. You can see it on the left plot, colored blue. Black line. Various whole plot can be used also. It's famous industry tool for that. But this integrated tool is hard to analyze properly. You need to interpret all every bending of this whole plot curve. And it has also less accuracy in instantaneous productivity describing. Here in a right plot, I put here productivity trends by whole plot, whole productivity, and productivity trend. It's usually it is wavelet trending, And here you can see that our trending, it's more accuracy, showing the instantaneous productivity fluctuations. And the blue line, it's whole productivity, and it shows the integral value, and it's less accuracy. And for example, here it shows more higher values, or here less values. The black line, it's more accuracy, and we use it in our productivity analysis. So the one more important prime activity is reallocation by reservoirs. It can be done based on analysis of well logging results. So for explaining the technique, let's see this schematic. It's shown on this. It's shown on the middle of the slide, and let's imagine that the well has a perforation in two layers, and we know them properties. According to these, or in other words, according to open hole prediction, injected water has the following allocation. It has allocation based on QH distribution, but it's not always true. In some cases, the picture can be different. If we do well logging and find out channeling, for example, the injection profile can be like this, and it's a factual prediction. As you can see, the different reservoirs are working. Here working according to open hole prediction, working both layers, but according factual prediction, below lowest layer B, it doesn't work. Layer A work less, and the third layer above, not perforated layer, it has the most injection here, and it means that we have some channeling here. So, and if we do the same analysis with this small field area, we can see the next picture. According to open hole prediction, flow allocation looks like this. For layer A and for layer B. It's according to KH distribution. And according to factual prediction, flow allocation looks like right side. And here they have dramatically difference. And most of them in the B layer. After analyzing all possible well logs, which we gathered in the beginning of our analyzing, and we can reallocate historical production and injection by reservoirs. And it can help us localize the oil bypass zones, for example. Here you can see cross sections, and these cross sections are created with addition inflow profile and injection profile. There are feed production and feed injection indicators also here, and it helps us to assess vertical sweep and make reallocation. And the technique of reallocation I described in previous two slides. And doing this type of cross sections and putting here the well-log profiles from well logging, we can do this type of allocation. The result of prime analysis is the table with diagnostics and with its justification of these diagnostics and recommendations for surveys and workovers for both. And for example, here you can see for well OP1, it has suspect of thief water production, and the high occurrence in the Watercut diagram can indicate this suspect. And PLT is recommended to allocate thief production. And also water shut off in case of channeling. If you found out channeling, we can recommend water shut off as workover. The well OP3 works on schedule. There are no anomalies on diagnostic plots, and this type of diagnostic also can be. For example, the next one is injector WI. Two has suspect of poor connectivity with reservoir, and on productivity plot we can see trend drop here. It's one of the indicators, but we need to see other metrics too for gather more information. And in general, if we see in other metrics, and if we use all our metrics holistically, we can do these decisions for putting diagnostics for each well. And this table is created for all wells, of chosen block. And this is end of our workflow. And let me summarize. The workflow of prime analysis is very simple, and it contains dropping from whole field analysis into block level. After that, into well level, and at the end we get this prime table out. And for this we're using a lot of metrics, plots, and other schematics, etc., which we create using all gathered input parameters, and have this type of prime analysis. Thanks a lot for your attention. If you have any questions, I will try to answer. Yes, Vladimir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Marat. Thank you for beautiful slides. I see you put a lot of efforts in presenting your work. I think you've shown us a lot. We have some questions here in our YouTube chat. So the question number one, let me start with the second question. Actually, I think it's rather simple. So we have a question: how do we calculate the cumulative water cut? I think I may just take that, if you don't mind, Dr. Marat. So cumulative water cut is just cumulative water production divided by cumulative liquid production. So
yes, absolutely right.
Thank you. Thank you, Marat. We have another question. I think you showed some of these in your slides, probably in slide number 8. So a question was, how do we decide which part of the field to select as the block to analyze? So again, could you please elaborate some more about how we prioritize between the blocks?
Thanks for your question. For selecting a prospective block, we need to use some criteria, as I mentioned. Yeah, and first of all, we need to select the block with high residual reserves for our works. Another criteria is high heterogeneous block, because for this we can find some bypass zones here. Another criteria is high water cut and high voidage replacement ratio. Means if we have high values in this block, we also can maybe expect that there is a lot of channeling wells there, and also we can choose blocks with high technical ready wells for further workovers and surveys. If we work with dead wells, it's not very good for us, because we can find some good zones, but this infrastructure of this block can be very poor for further activities. And picking all this or gathering all these criteria together, we can prioritize these blocks from first to the last, and starting work with the top priority. And if we have some problems of problems with technical conditions, we can move to the second priority, and etc., etc. Or if we can do prime analysis for each of these blocks, and we can start with top priority and moving to less priority blocks. And this is also can be done.
Thank you, Dr. Marat. I think that answers that. We have another question about production and injection reallocation. Could you please go back to the slide where you showing the way to reallocate? So the question is, how do you allocate production when KH, when transmissivity, is different from PLT? So it means, I think it means you have an open hull log KH distribution, then you have the production logging distribution, and which do you trust more? And how do you reallocate? Judging only by production logging, or you use some kind of a combination?
Yeah, sure. We also do the combination of these. When we doing reallocation of this production or injection some wells, we started with KH distribution in the if we show historically production. Yeah, we start with KH and do this distribution until we do first logging. And in this logging, we have another distribution except of KH distribution. And we start to use this allocation according to this distribution. And do this until the next logging and move like this for each logging to each logging by logging. And this percentage of injection or production can change from these points of historical time. And in general, when we get the final injection or production, we can see the real. It's not real. Yeah, you're right. It's not real, but it's more informative than if we use KH distribution in all wells life.
Okay, I see. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have another question. We've talked a lot about this prime analysis.
Yeah.
And so actually it is a workflow. It slightly worries me when you say that it's quite simple, because, well, the way I see it, well, yeah, it is probably simple when you spend several years developing it, right, and using it for several objects. But yeah, well, I think it's rather complicated workflow anyway. So, but again, the prime itself is a part of a bigger workflow, right?
Yeah.
So maybe could you please elaborate a little more on what is the place of prime in the global workflow when you just see the field for the first time, and before you give some, I don't know, major recommendations? So well, at least what would be the next step? So you've shown on your slides that there could be some immediate recommendations after prime analysis. So sometimes we can really see with these prime tools that something was missed, and we now see clearly that we need to, I don't know, from some kind of a workover just right now after prime analysis. But what if we don't? What would be the next step?
Yeah, thanks, Vladimir. I expected this this question. Yeah, prime analysis is part of the big integrated project. Yeah, and this project we called DOM, and prime analysis is the big. The first step, the first stage of this big integrated project. And when we do this analysis in the field we don't know before, we briefly or analyze it, like I show in this presentation. And after that, we do some recommendations for do some surveys and workovers, which can help us to localize, bypass all zones, and in general, using this type of surveys, like pulse code testing or MRT, etc., we can recommend to our clients, and also doing some calibration of dynamic models, we can recommend our clients to do some workovers to get additional oil here. And for that, in the end of this integrated project is multi-scenarios calculations, which we do using this calibrated model. And this big project starts with prime analysis and ends with multi-scenario calculations. Okay. Vladimir?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marat. I think that answers that. Dr. Marat, I think we don't have any more questions for now. So I think it's time for us to close our today webinar. So I'm going to remind the auditor once again that all NAFTA webinars are available on YouTube. So right after we close this Airstream, we will have a link to a YouTube page where you can once again have a look. If you forgot something, if you want to take another look at the slides, please, welcome. Also, on the NAFTA.college, under webinars, under forum, yeah, we have a forum on NAFTA.college where there's a dedicated thread for each webinar where you can address questions afterwards. And if you want to know a little more about particularly this prime analysis workflow, you can just go to our forum and we will be happy to discuss any of your questions. And now I think it's time to thank Dr. Marat. Thank you very much. It was very informative and well, your slides are awesome. Thank you again. I'm going to ask you for these slides later. Right. So, and to all our audience, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you with us. And please stay tuned. I think our next webinar will come soon. And for now, just have a good day. Stay safe. And goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye, dear attendees.